Hello, coming up in the Culture Show. The artists who can control time. Ireland's foremost new media talents, Cleary&Connolly, are here to talk about their new exhibition. Monet called him the master of the sky. A new show explores the influential work of French artist Eugène Boudin. And he was one of the best-known Swiss painters of the 19th century. We take a trip to Basel, where Ferdinand Hodler's art is on display. Thanks for joining us. Today's guests are the only Irish artists who have had a solo exhibition in the Pompidou Centre in Paris. Their latest groundbreaking work is on display at the Irish Cultural Centre in the city. Anne Cleary and Denis Connolly, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
In a moment, we're going to talk about your work, but first, let's take a look at it. And that is from the exhibition Look Both Ways at Paris's Irish Cultural Centre, inspired by the 100-year-old photograph of Jacques-Henri Lartigue, and it captures sort of the passage of time. But, I mean, I've tried to read up on it, but I don't properly understand. Explain a little bit more.
Well, essentially what you see there in the first clip that you saw there was a delay of about 8 seconds between the bottom and the top of the image. And that would have been inspired by Lartigue, who would have used a rolling shutter on his camera. And he was taking a photograph of a motor car. And what you see happening is, in fact, as the rolling shutter rolls up over his photographic plate, the car moves forward. But he's also in a car, and so the pedestrians look like they're slanting backwards. So you see the car that's moving forward slanting this way, and you see the pedestrian slanting that way.
Right.
It looks almost impossible, really. And what we tried to do was to apply the same theory of a rolling shutter to video,
Okay.
to HD video.
And why are you so interested in time, and why do you want to sort of change our perception of it?
Well, we've been working for about 2 years with scientists here in Paris at University Paris Descartes. They're perceptual scientists, and so they work on a lot of different aspects of how we perceive the world as we move through it. And so one of the subjects that we've been looking at with the scientists is called anorthoscopic distortion. It's a hard word to get your tongue around. And anorthoscopic distortion is what happens, perceptual distortions that you experience when you're moving at speed in different vehicles. For example, if you're in a car or a tramway or a train, and it actually really does happen in our minds. I mean, the world to a certain extent is slightly distorted. So we became interested in that whole idea of distortion as you move, because of that research we've been doing with scientists.
Okay, and both of you have kind of coined this term observer participation to describe your work, kind of really interested in the public being involved. Why is that important to you?
That goes back a long way. It goes back about 15 years. As artists, we started when we moved to Paris about 20 years ago. In fact, we became involved in the art world here, and with a lot of people who were involved in happenings and different events. It was quite fun, actually. And
For us, it was really just a question. I mean, very recently we've started working with technology as a way to bring a person who comes to an exhibition into the loop of what we're doing. And I think the first time we did that was about 5 years ago, when we were invited to do an exhibition in a house. And when we arrived there, the house was occupied. But they said, don't worry, we're going to empty out the house for your exhibition. And we said, well, what we'd like to do is film you in the house now. And then during the exhibition, we'd keep the camera in the same place, and we'd mix the house as an occupied house with the house as an exhibition venue. And it ended up being a kind of a way to bring a person into as they walk into the room, they become involved in the situation. In fact, the situation was the children of the house murdered me and wrapped me up in a carpet and hid me in a cupboard.
Now, you mentioned that you moved to Paris 20 years ago. You live here now.
Yeah.
why did you leave Ireland to make art here?
Well, we both studied architecture actually way back in Dublin in the 80s. And when we graduated, there was very few places in Europe that you really could go. I mean, we could have gone to New York, possibly London or Paris. So we just flipped a coin and came to Paris and very quickly gave up.
Artists tend to be attracted by big cities. And I think we wanted to change our careers from architecture to contemporary artists. And
you're the first Irish artist to have a solo show at the Pompidou. I mean, what does that mean to you guys?
Well, it wasn't. It would have been. It was a great honour to start with, and quite a big challenge. 3-month show in the Pompidou Centre, and especially considering that we were putting 7 computers, which had to run continuously in that environment, and make sure that they ran every day and didn't break down, and that we could get all this done within quite a limited budget. And it went very, very well. We were very, very, very happy and very honoured to be invited to do that show.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Congratulations. And your latest work can be seen in the Irish Cultural Centre until the 26th of April.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, now I wanted to ask you about another sort of art, Impressionism. Were you fans of that? Are you fans of that?
Oh, very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, we both, I mean, as you know, people who've gone to school in Ireland, we both actually studied art history in school, and we had this little book that we took with us to Paris, which was a complete history of Western art.
Yeah.
And part of that was the whole section on Impressionism, which is like plumbed through, and we still have the book at home with the pages falling out, so that would be really...
And have you
Irish
heard
people are very Francophile, so Impressionism tended to take a big part.
And have you heard of this artist, Eugene Boudin?
Not that much, actually.
I think lots of people have considered him, and don't worry, he was Monet's teacher, and he might not be as well known as his star pupil Claude Monet, but Eugene Boudin was vital to the Impressionist movement. A new exhibition in Paris is paying homage to the 19th century French painter. It's the first time in more than 100 years that a major retrospective of his work has gone on display in the capital, as Kate Moody reports.
Trouville Beach, buzzing with elegant Parisians. It's a scene captured on canvas by the 19th century French painter Eugène Boudin. His work is said to have been a precursor to Impressionism.
His art is ephemeral, instantaneous. You really feel like you're heading to the beach.
Boudin was one of the first painters to work outside, where he depicted what he called the simple beauty of nature. He drew inspiration from the sea. Beginning in his hometown of Honfleur, he went on to depict port scenes from Anvers to Bordeaux to Rotterdam. Despite the different locations, one thing always stands out in his paintings: the sky.
22 years after Boudin's death, when you asked Monet about his relationship with a painter, he would reply, "You mean with the master of the sky?" His talent is undisputed. While Claude Monet mastered water, Eugène Boudin was a king of the skies.
The artist's close relationship even led to confusion over this canvas. It was found in Monet's studio after his death, so it was attributed to him, and his signature was added. But then this painting by Boudin surfaced. With the same subject, materials, and style, there's no question that both were in fact painted by Eugène Boudin. His style remains difficult to pinpoint. Not quite classic, but not yet impressionist. This was Boudin's final painting, La Pointe du Raz. After this, he returned to Normandy, where he died under the skies he had painted so often.
Wow, it's really very beautiful and definitely worth a visit, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Stunning.
Okay, well, let's move on. 2 Israeli films were nominated for Best Documentary at this year's Oscars, propelling the country's filmmakers into the international spotlight. Following on from their success, the Israeli Film Festival is taking place here in Paris. It's the 13th edition of this event, which is growing every year, as Siobhan Silk reports.
9 feature films, 6 documentaries and an acclaimed TV series, all part of the programme for the 13th edition of Paris's Israeli Film Festival.
Israeli cinema is innovative. It's powerful, often very moving, sometimes very funny. It's capable of great questioning, of self-criticism. I don't think French cinema does much of that.
A major draw of the festival was the Oscar-nominated documentary The Gatekeepers, in which 6 former agents lift the veil on Shin Bet, Israel's domestic intelligence agency, while the opening film was the feature Rock the Kasbah, which takes an at once critical and humanising view of the Israeli Defence Forces.
Israeli cinema is a cinema of activism. It always has something to say, and it's a cinema that brings people together because in general its message is one of rapprochement. It holds a mirror up to a complex and torn society. I hope that more and more Israeli and Palestinian artists and filmmakers will work together.
While reflecting a society under pressure, Israeli cinema also tackles the more mundane issues of daily life.
In Israel, we have the same problems as people have in Paris, in London, in New York. We're for or against globalization, we get married, we get divorced. They're the same issues as anywhere else. An Israeli film, whether it's a success or not, has this universality which touches people and speaks to them.
And the festival is letting it speak to more and more people. In 13 years, the number of attendees has gone from 1,500 to 8,000.
And that brings us to the end of the show. Remember to follow us on our social networks and me at Evening in Paris. Thank you so much to today's guests, Cleary&Connolly, for joining us, the artists.
Thank you very much.
And a reminder, you can see their exhibition Look Both Ways at Paris's Irish Cultural Centre until the 26th of April. Now we're going to leave you with the work from the Swiss artist Ferdinand Hodler, which is on display at Basel's Foundation Biella until May. Hodler's famous for having had his paintings reproduced on Swiss banknotes. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.